Ivan has been grinding chess.com for months and still made zero progress. No, you're not supposed to start with grab opening. No, Ivan. Poor Ivan. If only Ivan knew better than this. We have to help beginners like Ivan. Alright, so let's talk about the first example, and this is an example made specifically for beginners. If you're 600, 700, up until 900, these examples are made for you. Okay. White, obviously, have made the move knight to f3. Let's say you're black. How are you going to react to this example right here? So the answer is very simple. You see that black is being under attack. The central pawn is e5, and it's obviously just the beginning of the game. Okay, we're also going to have more in-depth examples later on. Black's pawn is being under attack. Obviously, we need somehow to, one, defend it, but two, we also need to make a move that helps us exert more pressure over the center. Okay, now knowing this, it is very simple to understand what we should do. However, in the game itself, and I'm going to show you the solution quick if you're just starting out, black have made the mistake f6. What's the problem with moves like this? The problem is that these moves are what is called a very, very passive move. Let me show you an example. Let's say for a moment that we have a completely empty board with just two knights of our side in it. How do we determine which knight is better? The way that we determine this is by knowing which knight exerts the most pressure to the largest array of squares. So let's give you an example. A pressure is basically when a knight can land on this, capture something, etc. like this. Okay, this knight obviously, as you can see, controls or exerts more pressure than the first knight. This one controls 8, this one just 2. This is how we determine which piece or pawn is better, which one isn't. Answering this then, which knight are you going to move? Are you going to move the e5 knight, or are you going to move the a1 knight? Most likely, of course, you're going to move the knight from a1 to b3. From then, again, which knight are you going to move? Most likely, you're going to move the knight from b3 to d4. Okay, why d4, for example, and not c5? You want them to be as closer to the center as possible, the main four squares. That is what is called being more active. When the knight was in here on a1, it was very, very passive. It was very, very passive. Passive is basically the opposite of active. Activity is how much squares does one piece control. And what do we learn from this? We learn a few main basic things. In the opening, what you want to do is you want to have, first of all, as much pressure aimed towards the center with your knights, with your pawns, bishops, etc. This is the first thing we learn, right? If we had an empty the regular board, what this means is that we want to focus on these four squares the most, okay? Taking as much control of them as possible with our pawns. Sometimes there's also what is called striking in the center. You're going to see this term a lot. So if we were to return to a normal game, not the one that we've seen, we want most of our pieces to be as close as they can be towards the center, right? And as forward as possible as they can be on the board. That is why in the first example that we've seen, a move like this is considered so bad. The computer gives plus 1.59 points in favor of white. Basically, because of this, white is absolutely winning. Plus 1 is a winning. Plus 1 point is considered winning. Because of the principle of activity that we've just learned, you never want to make moves like this unless they're from a specific opening that are just not helping you take over the center with the pieces. Okay, so obviously now you want to make a move like this, right? Moves that help your pieces exert more pressure. After this pawn is defended, maybe you could start developing the bishop. So if, for example, white would have done, say, bishop c4, you do exactly the same thing. Okay, again, developing pieces. So your problem as a beginner right now is not actually that you know too little of the game yet. It is that you are trying to play too ill-principled. So what I would do if I was just in your case starting out is I would focus on, again, what is called the basic opening principles, where you basically move pieces closer towards the center, try to develop them. That is the term that is used. specifically in order to take over the center. Okay, and let's say for a moment, for the next times that something like this happens to you, let's say they made a move like d6 in here, which doesn't really, it defends the pawn, but it doesn't take over much of the central squares. What you can do is you can do strike in the center, where they now will have to take you, otherwise you're progressing more forward, and this is gonna be a problem because now he cannot develop the knight here, the bishop will not be able to move here, which is more problematic for him. So he will have to take, and if he takes here, you take again with the knight, and now you have a piece in the center, which is much better. And if literally you're thinking about how can I form questions out of this, this is literally how can I develop something, right? So for example, a knight, how can I take more control over the center? If you're a beginner, you could do, for example, a simple thing even just as d4 again. And what can I capture? 3 questions that are very simple. How can I develop? How can I take more square control? What can I capture? Let's now take a look for the second thing that we need to focus on when talking about activity as beginners, which is also material. In this exact example, again, what move would you do if you are white? If you are white and it was your turn. White, in this exact example, have made a bad move, but bad move, you have made the move queen takes on d6. What's the problem? If you do this move, this is called the 2 question marks. If you're just starting out, this is called a blunder, a big mistake that you made, which most of the time causes to lose material. The problem is that this move now, and yes, the best move was probably to move the queen back. The only thing that this queen is defended by is the white bishop on f4, meaning that after takes, the bishop is gonna take, and then this bishop is gonna take. Like, you've basically lost a bishop because of this. Queen takes, bishop takes, and bishop takes. How many times for 700 rated players? If this is you, go now to the archive of games wherever you play and see, has this happened to you? And I bet most likely, because it happens for all beginners, that it does happen to you. How do we fix problems like this? It is very simple actually. Remember that we have said in our thinking process, what can I capture? This is the question you also ask for the opponent. You also ask then the 4th question, what can my opponent capture? If this would have happened 2 moves ago in here, if white would have sat down and have said, okay, my queen is obviously under threat. I see this clearly. It's obviously under a threat. What can I do to save her? If I progress then forward, and I imagine this in my brain, I do not yet make the move, I imagine this. If I take the queen, what can my opponent capture? He can capture the queen, alright, and then I'll have to take back with the bishop, and then he could take with the bishop himself. Oh, so I'm not gonna do this move, I'm gonna think about another move. That's usually how it happens with avoiding one movers, like losing the bishops, etc. like this. You think about the move, you realize then it is a blunder, you discard the blunder, and you keep going. So now obviously I'm gonna move her back, right? Like the computer suggested. That is how we avoid blunders as complete beginners. If you're starting out, I would say this and the openings that we've talked about is what mostly affects how you play. Alright, you can go more in depth on this in the description below. Very soon I'm gonna release like a mini course made specifically for beginners. Basically, if you're right now 600, 700, I'm going soon to release in the description a mini course that will help most beginners develop actually from 600, 700 to 1000 ELO. And it's going to be a free mini course. You're not going to have to pay there. And this is going to be in the description. So here's what I want you to remember from this video. First of all, development, the thinking process that we have talked about, and being materialistic. Noticing when your opponents are making this sort of threats, what can you actually do to prevent material losses from them, and being materialistic. If your opponent makes a mistake like taking here, you should absolutely then capture. Now here's some actions that I want to give to you to learn more from this video as a beginner. First of all, you need to learn a basic opening. An opening is the set of moves that you do in the game itself, so that when you start out, you wouldn't make like problems and bad moves like this one, for example, where you basically damage your own development. You need to learn a specific opening. If you're black, you can pick an opening which is called the Caro-Kann. If you're white, you can pick an opening which is called the fried liver attack. They are very effective if you're just starting out. First thing. Second thing is write down the thinking process that we have talked about. How can I develop more pieces? How can I take more control over the center? What can I capture? What can my opponent capture? Writing these 4 questions, and before every move of the game that happens, asking them, will prevent you a lot of mistakes and inaccuracies like the ones you have seen happening in the beginner games right now. Now, once you've learned these 2, I want you to go and practice against bots, right? It's going to help you play more accurately when you go back to play with the thinking process and the opening against real players. This is how it goes. And the last thing is, if you have any questions, leave them below and see the mini course. It's going to help you a lot when you're starting out. We're going to basically silence all the bothering YouTube videos, and we're going to focus on only what actually matters. And again, you're not going to pay a dime for this. That's it. If you have any questions, again, leave them below. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.